Andre Lewis stood in the hospital break room, his blue maintenance uniform still damp from mopping the emergency wing. At 32, he had the build of someone who once played college football. Broad shoulders that filled out his work shirt, strong arms that had carried much more than cleaning supplies in their time. But life had taken him down a different path, one that required a different kind of strength. His calloused hands gripped the mop bucket handle as he watched her through the doorway, trying not to be obvious about it. Dr. Leona Mercer sat at the small table by the window, her silver hair pulled back in an elegant bun that somehow made her look both professional and approachable. At 28, she was younger than her prematurely gray hair suggested, a genetic gift from her mother's side that she wore with quiet dignity, refusing to diet despite well-meaning suggestions from colleagues. The evening Atlanta lights twinkled behind her as she sipped her coffee, reviewing patient charts with the same focus she brought to everything. Her dark brown skin seemed to glow in the soft light, and Andre noticed the small things about her that others might miss. The way she chewed her bottom lip when concentrating, how her long fingers moved gracefully across the pages, the slight furrow between her brows when she encountered something concerning in a patient's file. Andre had been working at Havencrest Medical Center for 6 months now, taking evening shifts while attending community college during the day. His engineering degree was 2 years away, but the bills wouldn't wait. His mother's medical debt from her battle with cancer 3 years ago still hung over him like a shadow. And his younger sister Jasmine was starting her sophomore year at Spelman. He'd made her a promise before their mother died, that she'd finish college debt-free no matter what it took. So he mopped floors, cleaned bathrooms, emptied trash bins, and studied thermodynamics in the supply closet during his breaks. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work. And his mother had raised him to never be ashamed of honest work. Every Tuesday and Thursday, their paths crossed during the 7 o'clock break, and every time he found himself lingering just a moment longer than necessary. At first, it was just polite nods and brief smiles. Then came small exchanges, comments about the weather, the overcrowded ER, the terrible coffee from the vending machine on the 3rd floor. Over time, those exchanges grew. Andre learned that Leona preferred tea to coffee, but drank coffee anyway, because it was what was available. She learned that he was putting himself through school, and that he had a gift for fixing things. Not just mechanical things, but problems in general. Once, when the ice machine broke down during a heat wave, it was Andre who figured out the issue and had it running again before maintenance could even arrive. "You're wasted in this job," Leona had said that day, genuine admiration in her voice. "It pays the bills," Andre had replied with a shrug. "And it's teaching me patience. Engineering is 90% problem solving and 10% knowing when to ask for help." She'd smiled at that, one of those real smiles that made her whole face light up. "That's wisdom beyond your years, Andre. My mama used to say that struggles either make you bitter or better. I'm trying real hard to choose better." Tonight was different. The hospital's annual charity gala was next week, and staff members were encouraged to attend. Andre had overheard the other nurses teasing Leona about not having a date, their voices carrying through the hallway as he'd cleaned nearby. "Come on, Dr. Mercer, you can't show up alone again this year," one had said. "Why not? I showed up alone last year and had a perfectly lovely time," Leona had responded, her tone light but firm. "But there will be so many eligible bachelors there. Doctors, surgeons, maybe even some of the board members. I'm perfectly capable of finding my own dates. Thank you very much." But Andre had seen the look on her face after they'd walked away, a mixture of resignation and loneliness that tugged at something deep in his chest. He knew that look. He'd worn it himself plenty of times. What they didn't know, what nobody seemed to notice, was how Leona always brought extra sandwiches and left them in the break room fridge with no name on them, knowing the cleaning staff often skipped meals to save money. How she stayed late to comfort patients who had no visitors, holding their hands through the long, frightening nights. How she treated everyone from the chief surgeon to the newest janitor with the same genuine respect and warmth. Andre had noticed other things too, like how she'd slip $20 bills into the donation jar for the staff emergency fund when she thought no one was watching. How she'd learned the names of everyone who worked the night shift, from the security guards to the cafeteria workers. How she'd once given her own jacket to a homeless woman who'd wandered into the ER waiting room on a cold night. She was different, special, and Andre had been carrying feelings for her for 3 months now. Feelings he'd tried to convince himself were foolish. She was a doctor. He was a janitor. She probably came from money, given her education and the way she carried herself with that quiet confidence. He came from the West End, from a neighborhood where making it out meant beating the odds stacked against you from birth. But tonight, watching her sit alone in that break room, reviewing charts while everyone else had gone home to their families, something shifted in Andre's chest. Life was too short. His mother's voice whispered in his memory. Too short to let fear hold you back from reaching for what makes your heart sing. Taking a deep breath that expanded his broad chest, Andre set down his mop bucket and walked into the break room. His heart hammered against his ribs, but his steps were steady. Leona looked up, and her tired eyes brightened with that warm smile she seemed to reserve just for him. "Long shift, Andre?" she asked, setting down her pen. "The usual," he replied, his deep voice betraying none of the nervousness he felt. He moved closer to the table, his hands finding his pockets, a nervous habit he'd never quite broken. "Actually, Leona, I wanted to ask you something." She tilted her head, curious. The fluorescent lights caught the subtle blue and silver tones in her natural hair, making it shimmer like moonlight on water. "What's on your mind?" "The hospital gala next Friday," Andre began, then paused. He could feel his palms starting to sweat. He knew what people would think, a janitor asking a doctor to a formal event. The optics weren't great, but something in Leona's eyes, the way she looked at him with genuine interest and kindness, encouraged him to continue. "I was wondering if you'd like to go with me, as my date." The silence stretched between them like a held breath. Andre watched as Leona's expression shifted through surprise, then something softer, almost vulnerable. Her fingers wrapped around her coffee cup, and for a moment he thought he'd made a terrible mistake. "Andre," she said quietly, her voice careful. "Are you sure? The gala tickets are $300 each." He nodded, having saved for weeks just for this possibility. He'd skipped lunches, picked up extra shifts, and turned down his boys when they'd invited him out. The money was sitting in an envelope in his locker, ready. "I'm sure. Though I should warn you, my dancing skills peaked at my high school prom back in 2010. It's been all downhill since then." Leona laughed, a genuine sound that filled the sterile room with warmth, like sunshine breaking through clouds. "Mine peaked around the same time. We'll be perfectly matched in our mediocrity." Andre's heart soared. "Is that a yes?" "It's absolutely a yes." She paused, then added with a slightly mischievous smile, "But I should warn you too. I talk through movies, I sing off-key in the car, and I have an irrational fear of birds." "Birds?" "Don't ask. It's a long story involving a very aggressive seagull and a boardwalk hot dog." Andre laughed, feeling the tension drain from his shoulders. Can't wait to hear it. The week passed in a blur. Andre rented a tuxedo from a shop in Decatur, practiced his rusty dance moves in his studio apartment while his neighbor probably wondered what all the noise was about, and tried not to think too much about how out of place he might feel among the hospital's donors and board members. He told Jasmine about the date during their weekly phone call. Wait, you asked out the doctor? His sister squealed with delight. The one with the silver hair you've been talking about for months? I haven't been talking about her for months, Andre protested weakly. Andre, you literally described her smile to me in detail. You said, and I quote, "It's like watching sunrise over the city." That's poet-level stuff, big brother. Yeah, well, Andre rubbed the back of his neck. Maybe I like her a little. A little? Boy, you're sprung, and I'm happy for you. Mama would be too. She always said you had the biggest heart of anyone she knew. Don't make me cry, Jazz. No promises. Now go show that doctor what a Lewis man is made of. Friday evening arrived with a mix of excitement and nerves. Andre picked Leona up at her apartment building, a modest mid-rise in Virginia Highland that surprised him with its simplicity. He'd half expected her to live in a penthouse in Buckhead, but this felt more real, more her. She emerged from the lobby in a navy blue evening gown that complemented her rich brown skin and brought out the warmth in her eyes. The dress was elegant but understated, flowing rather than flashy. Her silver hair was styled in an updo with a few intentional tendrils framing her face. She wore minimal jewelry, just simple diamond studs and a delicate gold bracelet. You clean up nice, Mr. Lewis, she said, taking his offered arm. Her touch sent electricity through his sleeve. You look beautiful, Leona, though you always do. She blushed, actually blushed, and Andre felt 10 feet tall. They took a lift to the Crystal Hall in downtown Atlanta, a stunning venue with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the city skyline. As they walked through the entrance, Andre noticed how some people did double takes. Not at him, but at Leona. Whispers followed them like shadows, heads turned, and conversations paused mid-sentence. He felt Leona's hand tighten slightly on his arm. You okay? He murmured. More than okay, she replied, but he could sense the tension in her body. Just ignore them. The ballroom was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow prisms across white tablecloths. A string quartet played softly in one corner, and waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Andre had never been anywhere this fancy in his life. Andre, Dr. Mercer. They turned to find Dr. Patricia Chen, one of the ER physicians, approaching with her husband. She was one of the few people at the hospital who treated everyone equally, regardless of their position. You two look amazing, Patricia said warmly. I didn't know you were coming together. Andre was kind enough to invite me, Leona said, and Andre noticed she didn't sound defensive or embarrassed. Just happy. They chatted briefly before Patricia and her husband moved on to mingle. Throughout the evening, more people approached. Some with genuine friendliness, others with barely concealed curiosity. Andre handled it all with the same easy grace he brought to everything. Answering questions about his studies, making people laugh with his quick wit. Leona watched him work the room and felt something warm spreading through her chest. He wasn't intimidated by the wealth around them, wasn't putting on airs or pretending to be something he wasn't. He was just Andre. Authentic, kind, present. When dinner was served, they found themselves at a table with other hospital staff. The conversation flowed easily, and Andre found himself genuinely enjoying the evening. He made the other doctors laugh with stories about some of the stranger things he'd found while cleaning. You'd be amazed what people leave in exam rooms. And Leona beamed with pride, watching him hold his own. After dinner, the dancing began. The DJ, a nod to Atlanta's rich musical heritage, mixed classic R&B with contemporary hits. When Before I Let Go by Frankie Beverly came on, the entire room came alive. "Oh no," Leona laughed. "I can't do the candy." "Then we'll make up our own dance," Andre said, pulling her onto the floor. And they did. They danced to songs that reminded them both of simpler times, laughing when they missed steps, not caring who was watching. During a slow song, Luther Vandross crooning Here and Now, Andre held her close, and he could feel her heartbeat against his chest. "There's something I should tell you, Andre," Leona spoke softly, her breath warm against his neck. "About who I am." "I know who you are," he said simply, his hand steady on her lower back. "You're the woman who stays 3 hours past her shift to hold a dying patient's hand, who learns the names of every person in this hospital, who sees people, not positions." "That's not what I mean," she said, pulling back slightly to look at him. Her eyes were serious, almost worried. "My father is Howard Mercer." Andre recognized the name immediately. Everyone in Atlanta knew Howard Mercer, CEO of Mercer Biomedical Group, one of the largest medical supply companies in the country. The company that donated millions to Havencrest Medical Center. The company whose name was on the new cardiac wing. The company that had basically funded half of the hospital's expansion. The pieces suddenly clicked into place, the whispers, the double takes, the way some people seemed to know her, even though she rarely attended social events. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" he asked after a moment, his voice quiet. "Because I wanted to be seen for my work, not my last name," she said, and he could hear the vulnerability in her voice. "I became a doctor against my father's wishes. He wanted me in the boardroom, grooming me to take over the company. But I wanted to be where I could make a real difference, where I could actually help people with my own 2 hands, not just write checks." She searched his face for judgment, for disappointment, for any sign that this changed things. "My father and we haven't spoken in almost a year. He thinks I'm wasting my potential, throwing away my future on some idealistic fantasy. He doesn't understand why I'd choose a nurse's salary when I could have an executive's income. You're not a nurse, you're a doctor," Andre pointed out gently. "Same difference to him. It's all beneath me, in his eyes." She took a shaky breath. "Does it change things between us?" Andre was quiet, processing this revelation. He thought about his own pride, his own struggles with accepting help, his determination to make it on his own terms. He thought about the assumptions people made based on last names and job titles. He thought about how Leona had never once made him feel less than, how she'd sat with him in that break room and talked about life and dreams like they were equals. Then he smiled, the kind of smile that reached his eyes and made them crinkle at the corners. "The only thing that changes is now I understand why you always look a little sad when people talk about struggling with money. You feel guilty for having what others need." Leona's eyes glistened. "Most people either want me for my connections or resent me for my privilege. Nobody just sees me. I want you for your terrible dancing and your habit of stealing my French fries during break," Andre said, making her laugh through her tears. "And Leona, you should know something too. I'm not going to be a janitor forever. I'm 2 years away from my engineering degree. But even if I was, I wouldn't be ashamed of honest work." My mama cleaned houses for 20 years to put food on our table and keep a roof over our heads. She taught me that dignity isn't in what you do, it's in how you do it." "I know," Leona said softly. "I've seen your textbooks in your locker. Advanced thermodynamics isn't exactly light reading." "You noticed?" "Andre, I notice everything about you. Like how you always make sure the break room is spotless before you leave. Not because it's your job, but because you want the next shift to start their day in a clean space. How you stop to help the nurses even when it's not your responsibility. How you study during your breaks instead of scrolling on your phone like everyone else. How you light up when you talk about your sister and how proud you are of her." Andre felt his throat tighten. "I notice things about you too. Like how you always buy coffee for the night shift nurses out of your own pocket. How you know everyone's birthday and leave little cards in their mailboxes. How you cry during those sad pharmaceutical commercials but try to hide it. How you hum when you think nobody's listening. Always old Motown songs." They stood there on the dance floor, the music fading into background noise, just looking at each other, really seeing each other. "I don't care about your father's money," Andre said finally. "I care about you, the real you. The woman who chose purpose over privilege, who fights for her patients like their family, who makes terrible puns when she's nervous." "I only make puns when I'm around you," Leona admitted. "Yeah?" "Yeah. You make me nervous in the best possible way." "Good nervous or bad nervous?" "The kind of nervous that feels like standing at the edge of something wonderful and terrifying at the same time." Andre pulled her closer. "Then let's jump together." They danced until the evening ended, no longer caring about the whispers or stares. When someone tried to pull Leona aside to ask about her father's company, Andre smoothly redirected the conversation. When an older doctor made a snide comment about mixing professional levels, Leona shut it down with a kind of cold precision that reminded everyone she was nobody's pushover. By the end of the night, they'd made it clear. They were together, and they didn't care who had opinions about it. 6 months later, Andre graduated from community college with honors, ready to transfer to Georgia Tech for his bachelor's degree. Leona was in the front row of the graduation ceremony, cheering louder than anyone else, tears of pride streaming down her face. Jasmine was there too, having driven up from Spelman, and the two women had become fast friends. Howard Mercer, who had initially been skeptical, furious even, when he'd learned his daughter was dating a janitor, had slowly come around. It started with a phone call Leona made, standing her ground, but opening the door for conversation. Then a cautious lunch meeting where Andre and Howard talked about engineering, business, and determination. Howard saw something in Andre that reminded him of his own younger self, before the money, before the empire, when he'd been a kid from the South Side with big dreams and nothing but hustle. "You remind me that I forgot where I came from," Howard told Andre during that lunch. "My daughter chose well, better than I deserved." By the time Andre proposed, on the rooftop of Havencrest Medical Center during a meteor shower, with Jasmine and Leona's mother hiding nearby to capture the moment, Howard had become one of Andre's biggest supporters. He even offered to pay for the wedding. Andre politely declined. "Sir, I appreciate it, but I want to do this right. I want to give her a wedding we built together, not one bought with someone else's money." Howard respected that. "You're a good man, Andre Lewis. Better than I gave you credit for." They married the following spring in the Havencrest garden courtyard, surrounded by colleagues who had become family. The guest list was an eclectic mix. Howard and his business associates sitting alongside Andre's boys from the neighborhood. Doctors and nurses mingling with janitors and cafeteria workers. Leona's medical school friends dancing with Jasmine's sorority sisters. Howard walked his daughter down the aisle, and when he placed Leona's hand in Andre's, he whispered, "Take care of my baby." "With my life, sir," Andre promised. The ceremony was officiated by the hospital chaplain, a kind older black woman who'd known both of them since they started at Havencrest. She spoke about love that sees past surfaces, about courage to cross divides, about choosing each other every single day. When Andre said his vows, his voice was steady and sure. "Leona, you saw me when I was invisible. You treated me with respect when others looked through me. You made me believe that I was worthy of love, not because of what I could become, but because of who I already was. I promise to honor that gift every day of our lives. I promise to see you, to choose you, to stand beside you through every storm and every celebration. You are my heart, my home, my forever." Leona's vows came through tears. "Andre, you taught me that strength isn't in power or wealth, but in character and integrity. You showed me what it means to work for your dreams without losing your soul. You loved me not for my father's name or my family's money, but for the woman I am when all of that is stripped away. I promise to be your partner in every sense, to support your dreams as you've supported mine, to build a life of purpose with you, to love you through every challenge. You are my anchor, my joy, my choice every single day." There wasn't a dry eye in the courtyard. The reception was a celebration that blended both their worlds, catered soul food alongside fancy hors d'oeuvres, a DJ spinning everything from old-school R&B to current hits, speeches from both the hospital CEO and Andre's former high school football coach. During their first dance, to "Ribbon in the Sky" by Stevie Wonder. Leona whispered, "Thank you for being brave enough to ask me to that gala. Thank you for being brave enough to say yes," Andre replied. Years later, when Andre had become a successful mechanical engineer specializing in medical equipment design, and Leona had opened a chain of free clinics in underserved Atlanta neighborhoods, they would still dance in their kitchen to those same old songs. Their home, a comfortable Craftsman in Grant Park, not too big, not too small, would be filled with the sound of their twin daughters' laughter, pictures from mission trips to provide medical care in rural communities, and shelves full of both engineering textbooks and medical journals. They would remember that night when a janitor found the courage to ask a doctor to dance, never knowing he was asking for a lifetime of partnership with someone who valued hearts over bank accounts, character over credentials. On their 10th anniversary, Leona surprised Andre with a gift. The mop he'd been using that first night he asked her out, now mounted in a shadow box with a plaque that read, "The tool that cleaned the path to our future. May we never forget where we started." Andre laughed until he cried, then pulled her close. "You kept my mop?" "I kept everything about that night. The ticket stubs, the receipt from your tuxedo rental, even the napkin you nervously shredded during dinner. You were so nervous. I was terrified. I kept thinking, what am I doing, asking this brilliant, beautiful woman out? She's going to laugh in my face. I would never. I'd been hoping you'd ask for months." "Really? Really? I used to time my breaks to when I knew you'd be cleaning the hallway just so I could see you." They laughed about it now, about the dancing around each other, the stolen glances, the carefully casual conversations that meant so much more than the words suggested. Their daughters, Amara and Zuri, age 7, would grow up hearing the story of how their parents met, how Daddy was a janitor and Mommy was a doctor, and how love didn't care about any of that. How Grandpa Howard had been wrong to judge Daddy at first, but had become one of his best friends. How Great-Grandma Lewis, though she'd passed before they were born, had taught Daddy that honest work was nothing to be ashamed of. The world will try to tell you who's important and who's not, Andre would tell his daughters. But the truth is, everybody matters. The janitor matters as much as the CEO. The nurse matters as much as the surgeon. Never let anyone make you feel less than because of what you do for a living. And never think you're better than someone else because of your last name or your bank account. Leona would add, use whatever privileges you have to help others. Your grandfather's money, your parents' connections, your education. Those are tools, not status symbols. We were blessed so we could be a blessing. Because real love, they learned, doesn't care about social positions or family fortunes. It cares about showing up, seeing each other truly, and having the courage to reach across the divide that only exists in our minds. Sometimes the greatest treasures come disguised in simple uniforms, carrying mop buckets and medical charts, waiting for someone brave enough to see beyond the surface. Howard Mercer, once opposed to his daughter's choice, became Andre's biggest champion. He funded Andre's graduate studies, not as charity, but as an investment in family. He walked his granddaughters to school when Andre and Leona had early shifts. He learned finally that wealth meant nothing if you didn't share it with people who mattered. On his deathbed, years later, Howard would hold Andre's hand and say, "I was wrong about you, son. You gave me back my daughter. You gave me a family I didn't deserve. Thank you for teaching this old fool that love is the only thing that really matters." "You weren't a fool, sir," Andre would say, tears streaming. "You were just protective of someone you loved. I get it now. I have daughters too. Be better than I was," Howard whispered. "Don't let pride stand in the way of love." "I won't, I promise." And he kept that promise. Through every challenge, every triumph, every ordinary Tuesday evening, Andre and Leona chose each other. They chose love over pride, partnership over power, purpose over prestige. Their story became legend at Havencrest Medical Center. Proof that sometimes the best love stories start in the most unexpected places, between the most unlikely people, when someone has the courage to say, "Would you like to dance?" If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to be reminded that love sees beyond circumstances. Subscribe for more heartwarming stories that celebrate the unexpected connections that change our lives. Have you ever experienced a moment when someone saw you for who you truly are? Not what you do or where you come from? Share your story in the comments below.